All right, we're going to get started. Thank you so much for joining today's GA4GH 101 webinar. We're so happy to have you here. GA4GH stands for the Global Alliance for Genomics and Health. And today we'll be talking about GA4GH's efforts to enable a responsible and global sharing of genomic and health data. My colleague Yash and I are members of the GA4GH Secretariat, and we will be giving today's presentation. But I also want to give a shout out to other Secretariat members that we have here today. Amreen and Connor will be helping out with today's talk. So to introduce ourselves, my name is Stephanie. I am the creative lead at GA4GH, and I am based at Boston at the Broad Institute. I'll turn it over to Yash.
Hi, my name is Yash Puligunla. I'm a software engineer with the GA4GH tech team. I'm also based at Broad Institute, Boston.
So we would love for today's session to be as interactive as possible. And it's great that we have a smaller group here so that we can help answer any questions that you may have. And so for that, we will be using a platform called Slido for participation and Q&A. If at any point you have a question, please feel free to add them to Slido, and we will be sure to get to them at the end during our Q&A session. So all you have to do is just enter in slide.do into your internet browser and use the hashtag GA4GH101 to find this event. So to get used to Slido, we're going to kick off with a couple of polls prepared so that we can learn more about you. So on your end, feel free to go ahead and open up Slido on your end and then navigate to the polls tab in the top bar. So the first question that we have for you today is, where are you joining from? All right, the Mayo Clinic, Cambridge, welcome. We have Cape Town, wonderful, welcome. We have Boston, Cleveland Clinic, Toronto, Zambia, more from Toronto, from New York. All right, so I think our numbers are stabilized. Oh, we have one more participant typing, so let's see who comes in. New Zealand, wonderful, welcome, welcome. Welcome, Cambridge. Cool, again, huge welcome to the webinar today. We are so excited to have people from all over the globe. All right, our second question that we have for you on Slido is, what's one thing that you're hoping to learn from today's session? Oh yes, how can I get involved? That is a big question, and we'll definitely be sure to touch upon that today. Yep, how to join a work stream. Yep, we'll definitely cover that. Yes, the GA4GH mission. Yep, how's GA4GH a global org? More about GA4GH standards. Wonderful, so I think we've leveled out here. So yes, these are all wonderful points, and we will definitely be sure to cover them today. Yes, and understanding more about what GA4GH does. Perfect. And then the last question that we have for you to get used to Slido is, how do you currently engage with GA4GH? It also looks like we've had folks who've attended a plenary meeting. Not involved, that's totally cool. We have some folks who have worked with the GA4GH driver project, some folks who have used a GA4GH standard, working with driver projects. Wonderful. Cool, so it's wonderful to see so many newcomers to GA4GH, and we are very excited to kind of share a bit more about what GA4GH is all about in ways that you can get involved. So thanks for answering those Slido questions. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague Yash.
Thank you, Steph. Here is the list of topics we will be covering today. We'll start with why GA4GH exists, how GA4GH works, the future of data sharing, how GA4GH can help you, and ways you can get involved with GA4GH activities. And we will end the webinar with a Q&A session. Sorry, thanks. Coming to the first question, why GA4GH exists? In the last few decades, genomics has seen massive and ongoing changes in technology. And one really good example for this is the Human Genome Project. It was conducted over 20 years ago. It took 10 years to complete and costed over $3 billion. Today, sequencing can be done in less than a day and for less than $1,000. With these developments in technology, healthcare providers can offer whole genome sequencing to large patient populations at an affordable cost. But this also means there's large amounts of genomic data that could be available for analysis. It does come with its own challenges. In the next slide, we see one of the biggest challenges is obviously the scale of the data. Here is a recent study done by UK Biobank, where exome sequencing and analysis was done on about 500,000 participants. Apart from having this enormous amounts of data, there are other challenges as well when it comes to genomic data sharing. And I will pass on to Stephanie to talk more about these challenges.
So as Yash mentioned, the landscape of genomics is scaling up. There are more than 200 genomic data initiatives that are active around the globe today, ranging from clinical genomics, research, national genomic data initiatives, clinical trial cohorts, and many more. Together, oh, my bad. Oh yes, here we go. So together, these more than 200 genomic data initiatives are generating huge amounts of genomic and related health data. And we're seeing that this shift, that data is increasingly coming from clinical care and clinical trials research rather than just academic research. This wealth of data has huge potential to further our knowledge of human health and disease. And then that brings us to some pretty big questions. So how can we make use of all of this data? How can we create bridges between research labs and the clinics so that discovered knowledge can then be put into practice? There are numerous challenges that we can face, such as developing the infrastructure and technology to do so, building trust with patient and participant communities, ethical and regulatory questions, ensuring the privacy and security of the data, and so on and so forth. And what we've noticed is that as a community, we are making strides, and we're seeing that an increasing number of countries have started biobanks, in many cases connected to their healthcare systems, including those of the UK Biobank, the NIH All of Us research program, the Tohoku Medical Megabank, and the Japanese Biobank, and many more. And so with that, we have another Slido question for you. So we want to hear, what are some of the biggest problems that you are facing in data sharing and precision medicine? So again, feel free to go onto sly.do using the hashtag GA4GH101 to see the question. Not knowing where to start, that is definitely a huge challenge. Inconsistent data formats, for sure. Annotating large data sets with metadata, yes. Question. Yes, gaining access to the data sets for sure is a huge, huge problem. The storage of the data sets. Computing resources. Effective models for obtaining consent to use the data. Wonderful. All right, thanks so much for sharing these responses. And so from here, we're going to move on to GA4GH and how we are helping to kind of tackle these challenges. And so with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Yash.
Thanks, Steph. So coming to the topic of how GA4GH tackles these challenges in genomics, health, and data sharing. GA4GH is an international policy framing and technical standard setting organization. It was founded in 2013 with a mission to accelerate progress in genomic science and human health by developing standards and framing policy for responsible genomic and health related data sharing. In the next slide, we see the GA4GH framework. The GA4GH framework provides guidance for responsible sharing of human genomic and health related data, which includes both personal health data and other types of data that could be used in relationship to health predictions. The framework is guided by Article 27 of Universal Declaration of Human Rights, 1948, which guarantees the right of every individual in this world to share in scientific advancements and its benefits. The framework has been translated to multiple languages, including Arabic, Chinese, Dutch, Finnish, etc. And they're available to download in the GA4GH website. In the next slide, we will be looking at the global genomic data sharing and what it can achieve. So we've been discussing about this large amounts of genomic data available. What can sharing of this data actually achieve? If we are able to create a virtual cohort of properly consented data on a global level, we will enable a host of downstream impacts for both research and precision medicine. We will be able to demonstrate patterns in health and disease, increase statistical significance of analysis, lead to stronger variant interpretations, increase accurate diagnosis, and advance in precision medicine. This is evident from the groundbreaking discoveries that were possible during COVID-19 pandemic because of this unprecedented genomic data sharing that was done at a global scale, which leads to the question in the next slide. This leads to the question, how do we go about sharing this genomic data that's spread across the globe, and that too in an efficient manner? The answer to this is to have interoperability. We need to have interoperability between different computer systems and platforms, different data pipelines and databases, and between, most importantly, jurisdictions. And we can achieve this interoperability by having standards. And next slide, please. Let's look at the organizational structure of GA4GH, starting with the leadership. Our current leadership, we have 4 members in our executive committee, which includes Ewan Burney. He's the chair of GA4GH. He's from Emble EBI, Kingston, UK. We have Peter Goodhand, our chief executive officer, and he's from Ontario Institute for Cancer Research, Toronto, Canada. And Heidi Rehm, vice chair of GA4GH. She's from Broad Institute, Cambridge, US. Catherine North, she's also our vice chair and co-chair of Genomics and Health Implementation Forum, and she's from Murdoch Children's Research Institute, Melbourne, Australia. And our steering committee is comprised of workstream leads and champions of our driver projects. We will talk more about work streams and driver projects in just a bit. I'll pass over to Stephanie to talk about GA4GH ecosystem.
All right, so let's take a closer look at our ecosystem. So as Yash mentioned, at GA4GH, we aim to build interoperable standards by convening the genomics and health community. So we have over 670 organizational members who have committed to the mission of GA4GH, and they represent over 50 countries across the globe. We have more than 450 contributors who are actively developing our standards, and we have over 4,000 people subscribed to our mailing lists to stay up to date with our latest activities. As I'll explain in just a bit, the actual work of the standards development happens within our 8 work streams, who work closely with 24 driver projects and other initiatives around the world. And all of these people working together have produced more than 30 technical standards and over 20 policies and frameworks. GA4GH products have over 120 implementations and deployments around the world. And we hope that all of this will ultimately enable a healthcare system that can learn from global knowledge. So now we're going to zoom in on the work streams and driver projects, where much of the standards development work is happening. So as I mentioned, there are 8 work streams, which are GA4GH working groups that are developing the standards and policies. And there are 2 community members who volunteer to lead each of the work streams. Anyone within the genomics and health community, though, can contribute to these groups. You'll notice that the last 2 work streams on that left-hand side are our foundational work streams. Those are the regulatory and ethics work stream and the data security work stream. And their work underpins all development work here at GA4GH. Moving to the right-hand side, contributors to these 8 work streams collaborate very closely with 24 driver projects. And these driver projects have made a dedicated commitment to providing resources and insights to the work streams, and also to piloting and implementing the standards in their real-world contexts, and to make sure that the standards are fit for purpose. You can see examples of driver projects on the right, such as Matchmaker Exchange, H3 Africa, Genomics England, Elixir, and so on. And so the opportunity here that GA4GH is seeking to take is that if we can leverage the pandemic emphasis on infectious disease data sharing and enable secondary use of clinical genomic data for research, we will fast approach a virtual cohort of more than 60 million samples. And that's a lot of information that we have the potential to learn from.
At GA4GH, we've identified 4 different approaches to data sharing. There is centralized genomic knowledge base, which gives the clients access to knowledge developed from the data and not the data itself. And there's data commons, which is a trusted repository of multiple data sets where all the data is held under same sharing agreements. And we have hub and spoke federation model. It is a distributed system where data is hosted locally, but analyzed remotely, which requires a common agreement and sharing, have shared technical standards. And then we have linkage of distributed and disparate data sets. This again requires common technical standards. In the next slide, we have another Slido poll to see which data sharing approaches you have used before. Okay. I see the responses are coming in. Data Commons is in the lead so far. And you can select more than one option, I believe. Cool. Looks like most of you have selected Data Commons with 83%. And that's great. We can move on and we'll talk a bit more about the federation data models shortly. So we're starting to notice an increase in the number of genomes that are stored in cloud when compared to the genomes stored on-prem. And this number is expected to rise sharply by the end of this decade, which means our current data sharing approaches should also be able to adapt to this change. Let's see how we can do that. In the next slide. So with more and more data being stored in cloud when compared to on-prem, we're also seeing a shift from data copying to data visiting for genomic analysis. So instead of downloading multiple copies of large data sets to individual machines, researchers are able to send their workflows or algorithms to data location where the data is present and perform analysis remotely. And this is possible via standardized APIs. Next slide, please. So what are the advantages of having federated data sharing models? Federation allows data to be kept in its original location. We don't have to make multiple duplicate copies every time someone has to run a workflow. and it provides standard access methods. These methods adhere to regulatory processes of a given region. And sometimes this method of bringing an algorithm to where the data is present is called bringing code to data. A federated system between healthcare and research would let us transfer methods and skills into healthcare sector and also leverage healthcare data for secondary research. Up next, we will be learning about genomic data lifecycle.
Yes. So if we do manage to create that feedback loop between healthcare and research, then we can achieve what we call the global learning health system. So learning health system describes a continuously adapting system where data and analytics generate knowledge. That knowledge is then implemented into practice, which generates new and better data, which feeds back into the system to generate new knowledge. So here on the slide, we have an example of how that learning health system could potentially play out. It is a hypothesized data lifecycle. We start on that left-hand side with the data donor or patient who obtains consents to have their information collected. That data then moves through to responsible storage so that can be securely accessed for secondary research, all in all leading to improved knowledge that can inform health and medicine. And so GA4GH standards play an integral role throughout each of the steps of this data lifecycle and learning health system. And beyond this, GA4GH resources are really flexible. They can be adapted to other contexts and systems and work together in different ways. We have a really great animation or a video here. I highly recommend that you check it out. It shows GA4GH standards helping Anna, our researcher, gain access to data sets, then using those data sets for research to then inform better healthcare and options for patients. We'll share the link in the chat as well. So next up, we have how GA4GH standards can help. So I'm going to turn it over to Yash.
Thank you, Stephanie. In this section, we'll be learning how GA4GH can help you and different ways you can get involved with different GA4GH activities. Next slide, please. So GA4GH is organized into these 8 work streams, 6 technical and 2 foundational work streams. The foundational work streams being regulatory and ethics and data security, upon which our technical standards and other work streams are built. Let's look at each of these in detail, starting with ClinPheno.
Yep, so here we have the clinical and phenotypic data capture workstream, or ClinPheno for short. And their mission is really to support the clinical adoption of genomics by developing information models for describing and exchanging clinical phenotypes. This includes the capture and exchange of information between clinical research and patient-centered systems. ClinPheno is currently working on several deliverables. One of them is phenopackets, which provides a computational way to describe and share a patient's phenotypic information and traits. That packet of information can then be shared to facilitate research. Earlier this year, phenopackets became the first GA4GH standard to be accepted by ISO, the International Standards Organization. And it's one example of how we're trying to align with what other standards organizations are doing out there as well. ClinPheno is also working on the pedigree standard, which allows for the computable exchange of family health history information, as well as the representation of larger and more complex families. It is a graph-based model intended to fit within the structure of other standards like phenopackets and HL7 FHIR as well. Currently, the pedigree team is working to take their product through the GA4GH approval process. And then an emerging area of focus within ClinPheno is the computable cohort representation group. So they are aiming to explore the space of cohort discovery, extraction, and comparative statistics. And they're in the early stages of defining potential standards. So if any of these areas are of interest to you, please contact Lindsay Smith, who is the workstream manager for ClinPheno.
Cool. Coming to cloud workstream. So any genomic analysis usually involves running computational workflows for long periods of time on huge amounts of data. Because genomic data is usually larger, much larger than software or workflows that are used to analyze it, Cloud Workstream aims to bring these workflows to where the data resides using modern cloud environments, as opposed to copying the data over for running a workflow. Cloud Workstream has released a set of 4 APIs, and these APIs help create portable, shareable, and reproducible workflows. Portable as in being able to move a workflow between different computational platforms. Reproducible is if a workflow is run with the same set of inputs, it should always result the same set of outputs, regardless of what cloud service provider we're using, regardless of where the data is located or which computational platform is being used. So coming to the 4 APIs, Tool Registry Service or TERS. This API provides a standardized interface to the clients to access published tools and workflows. Data Repository Service or DURS, which allows clients to choose a copy of a dataset from multiple copies available to submit to a workflow. The choice of the dataset can depend on different factors like geographic location of the data or cloud platform which is hosting the data. We have Workflow Execution Service or REWS. This is also a standard that provides an interface for clients to request that a workflow be run on a dataset of interest. And then coming to Task Execution Service or TES. This provides a standard API interface for clients to describe batch execution tasks. After submitting a workflow or task to either REWS or TES, the clients can request a status of their run, and the server would respond with the status information, like if the job is running or complete or errored, along with logs, error messages, and output files. If you're interested in joining the Cloud Workstream or interested in learning more about any of these APIs, please reach out to Regan Thomas. He's our Cloud Workstream manager. Next slide.
Right, next up, we have the Data Use and Researcher Identities Workstream, or DURI for short. So the DURI workstream really aims to streamline and make more efficient the data access process from 2 angles. So on one side, being from the data use side, which is around establishing clear parameters for how data sets should be used based off of their original consents. And the second, from the researcher identity and access side, to more easily authorize and authenticate researcher access to data sets. So DURI right now is working on a variety of different deliverables. So one of them is the Passport standard, which is a digital identity for researchers to use to access distributed data sets. So the Passport is composed of visas that expresses a researcher's data access permissions that they can then carry around to participating institutions and data environments to get access to a data set. Another standard that DURI is working on is the Data Use Ontology, or DUO. And DUO basically allows data custodians to tag data sets with restrictions about their usage. And so this can help researchers of certain authorization levels discover potential data sets for their studies. And then on another side, it can support data access committees in making data access decisions or even automating those processes. To support the community in adopting this standard, DUO has now been translated into Japanese and Spanish with more languages along the way. Lastly, the machine readable consent guidance was developed in collaboration with the regulatory and ethics workstream, and it describes how to adopt data sharing consent language that can unambiguously map to the data use ontology, or DUO. So this can facilitate data access requests, submissions, and approvals. So again, if any of these areas are of interest to you, you can reach out to Fabio Liberante, the workstream manager for DURI.
Next, we have Discovery Workstream, which aims to create a unified data discovery platform to make it easier to find and use data sources and services for genomic and clinical analysis. This workstream has developed and is maintaining 3 different standards. We have Beacon API, which allows researchers to get information about presence or absence of a given specific genomic mutation in a dataset. Recently, the team has released Beacon V2, which not just provides the information about presence or absence of a genomic mutation, but also gives the researchers more options when searching for the variants. And it also adds flexibility to ask more questions about both the dataset and attributes about the patients or participants. We have Data Connect API, which aims to simplify interactions between different data sources and data consumers. It does so by providing a unified and standard API interface with 4 different endpoints. There is tables endpoint, which lists all the data sets or tables. There's table info endpoint, which gives the metadata information about a table, and table data endpoint, which provides or returns all the data that's present in a table. And there is also an optionally available search endpoint, which allows the client to run SQL queries on multiple tables or a single table. Coming to the Data Connect specification, the good thing about it is it does not prescribe any data models. Instead, it gives the flexibility for the data providers to be able to describe their own data models along with their data sets. The last one is Service Info and Service Registry. Service Registry provides a network of all API-based GA4GH standards, and Service Info is meant to be included in other GA4GH API specifications as an endpoint. This endpoint would provide information about the specific implementation. Together, Service Info and Service Registry provide this internet of all GA4GH API-based services. If you're interested in Discovery Workstream, please reach out to Fabio Librante.
So next up, we have the Genomic Knowledge Standards Workstream, and GKS aims to develop tools to share reference genomic information in a clear and consistent way. And so the idea is that ultimately this will enable the downstream analysis of the genomic data and allow diagnostic laboratories, electronic health records, researchers, and knowledge bases to reliably compare results, leading to better health outcomes. So right now, GKS is developing 2 main standards. One of them is the Variation Representation Specification, or VERS. And VERS provides a framework for precisely representing and exchanging genetic variation data. Within VERS, it includes a terminology and information model, a machine-readable schema to structure genetic variation data, and algorithms to generate globally unique computed identifiers for a variant. Another standard that the team is working on is the Variant Annotation Specification, or VA, and it is a standardized schema that focuses on interpreting observed variants with details about how they may impact gene function, how it may lead to the progression of a disease, or how effective a particular therapeutic may be, given its variation profile. Currently, the workstream is working on a model for implementing these standards and are conducting an end-to-end pilot to show how they can all work together. Coming down the pipeline is a newly formed project on sequence annotation, which aims to look at discontinuous and continuous annotations along a genomic sequence. So to get involved, you can reach out to Reagan Thomas.
Next, we have Large-Scale Genomics, or LSG workstream, which aims to develop efficient formats and ensure that the primary data formats and libraries are evolving to meet needs of large-scale genomic sequencing. The standards maintained by LSG can be broadly divided into 2 categories, file format standards and API standards. Under file format standards, we have SAM, BAM, CRAM, VCF, and CRYP4GH. Coming to SAM, or Sequence Alignment Map, it consists of a header and an alignment section. The team is also maintaining its binary component counterpart called BAM, or Binary Alignment Map. It's also maintaining CRAM, or Compressed Reference Alignment Map, which achieves compression by aligning biological sequences to a reference sequence and then storing only the base calls that differ when compared to the reference sequence. SAM and BAM, for these 2 standards, LSG aims to improve efficiency and support new sequencing platforms, while for CRAM, it's looking at improved efficiency, random access for long reads, and CRAM file sizes for short read data. LSG also maintains VCF format, which stands for Variant Call Format, specifically focusing on improvements to the format. And CRYP4GH, this format can be used to store data in an encrypted and authenticated state. This allows genomic data to remain secure throughout its lifetime, that is, from initial sequencing to sharing with professionals at external organizations. LSG also develops and maintains API standards, which are used for efficient access of data. RefGet API is a standard that's used for streaming reference sequences. HTS-GET API is used for streaming high-throughput sequencing alignments from targeted regions that the researcher is interested in. RNA-GET API is used for streaming RNA-seq gene expression matrices. This API returns dynamic matrices that only contains the genes and treatment conditions that are of interest to the researcher. If you're interested in any of these file formats or API standards, please reach out to Regan Thomas, who is our workstream manager for LSG.
So now we come to one of the foundational work streams. So the Regulatory and Ethics Workstream, or REWS, is aiming to activate the human right to benefit from science by establishing forward-looking governance that's harmonized across countries, sectors, and institutions. So REWS is really trying to focus on the ethical, legal, and social implications of international data sharing. REWS is working on a lot of projects, as you can tell from this slide. So today I'm going to highlight a few of them. So recently, REWS has completed their consent toolkit, which provides templates to help researchers and clinicians draft clear and digestible consent forms. They cover areas from drafting consent forms for large-scale genomic studies to pediatric and familial consents. Another project that the team has worked on is that they've launched a new blog post series on public attitudes for genomic policy, which aims to translate the findings from the Your DNA, Your Say initiative into useful outputs for policymakers and researchers. Their first blog post is out now, and it talks about the importance of building trust with public stakeholders. So if that is of interest, you can go to GA4GH.org, go to our news section, and check out their blog post. I also want to emphasize that now is actually a really good time to get involved with REWS, since they're launching a lot of new initiatives. And so that includes their new diversity and datasets group. They're also aiming to build an ethical provenance toolkit, and they are starting to look at building out new resources for their genetic discrimination toolkit. And so you can contact Lindsay Smith to learn more about any of these initiatives.
Next up, we have Data Security Workstream, which aims to help the community to keep data protected and ensure that the GA4GH standards are developed within a sound risk management framework. The deliverables include risk assessment and methodology for software stacks, including defining what information and data needs to be protected. We have cloud security and privacy guidelines and recommendations, and we have AAI, or Authorization and Authentication Infrastructure Standard. This is the technical profile underlying the passport standard that we just discussed in DURI workstream. To get involved with Data Security Workstream, please reach out to Fabio Librante. Next slide, please. In addition to workstreams where standards are developed, we have other groups as well that are focused on testing out existing standards to see how they can be put in practice to facilitate real-world and federated genomics. One such cross-workstream activity is FASP, or Federated Analysis Systems Project. FASP was established to show that GA4GH APIs, when used together, facilitate real-world science by enabling genomic data discovery, access, and analysis in cloud. FASP conceptualizes demo use cases that simulate how a researcher would search and analyze genomic data within a GA4GH ecosystem. The FASP group also conducts hackathons twice a year. If you're interested in brainstorming and solving problems together with the GA4GH community, reach out to any of the workstream managers to get involved in these hackathons or FASP in general. We also created this resource called that's available in the GitHub repository shown on the slide. This repository will get you access to tutorials and client scripts that interacts with real-world implementations of Data Connect, DURS, and WES standards. Next slide, please. So another cross-workstream activity is the GA4GH starter kits. StarterKit is nothing but an open source reference implementation of GA4GH API specification. These StarterKits are basically are primarily developed by the staff engineering team or the GA4GH tech team. The source code is available on GitHub, and the Docker images are available on Docker Hub. They're very easy to download, configure, and deploy. We currently have StarterKits for Data Repository Service or DURS, Workflow Execution Service or REWS, Data Connect, and Passports. The StarterKit will serve an important role in improvement of our standards by providing a code base that is easy to update with prototype features. As a new specification feature moves from experimental to standardized, the idea is to have StarterKit keep up with these changes so that there's always a reference implementation of the latest standards. You can find getting started documentation at starterkit.ga4gh.org. You can find more tutorials on using multiple StarterKits that interact with each other on the ISMB tutorial repo that was shared in the previous slide. I will pass on to Stephanie now.
All right, so we know that was a lot of information, so no worries if you didn't catch some of the contact information or if you want to look at the slides. We will share this presentation afterwards, so you can have this for reference and share it with your colleagues. And at any point, you can also email secretariat at ga4gh.org, and we can put you in touch with the right person. So we want to take the last few slides of our presentation here to talk about how you can get involved, just concrete next steps. And so we definitely welcome any organizations to join us as organizational members. And all that means is that you've signed on to the mission of GA4GH. On our website at ga4gh.org/members, there's a form that you can fill out to apply. You can also sign up for our mailing lists to receive updates on our work, upcoming events, any other announcements at ga4gh.org/subscribe. So the work streams can be and feel quite technical, but any of them are of interest to you. We have a great program to help you get started. So last year we introduced a new onboarding program that connects newcomers with workstream guides to help them get oriented to the work streams and all the different deliverables and projects that they're working on. And so if you are interested in being a part of this program, you can contact Connor Graham to sign up. And then more specifically on national initiatives, we have a forum that aims to support clinical implementation of genomics through global collaboration. The forum focuses on identifying areas of collaboration, including the sharing of resources and expertise, developing pilot projects for global data sharing for use in large-scale cohorts, and then identifying common needs for standards across initiatives to then feed into the GA4GH work streams. So you can learn more about this forum and how to get involved on our website under the implementation tab. And then lastly, we just wanted to share that we have our GA4GH Connect meeting coming up. This is our biannual working meeting where our contributors dive into the weeds, get into the nitty-gritty of developing these standards. So if you feel ready to dive into the weeds, the work streams will be holding these deep dive working sessions during these timeframes in November to advance the standards and policies that you heard about today. And so there's a link to that to learn more about the event and to register. And you can also always reach out to us at secretariat@ga4gh.org. And so with that, Yash and I are available to help answer any questions. Feel free to head over to the Slido or to use the Q&A function in Zoom, and we are happy to help. Yeah, hello. Welcome, Odu. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name. So happy to have you here on the webinar. I see another question here about how can a university student contribute. So technically the GA4GH work streams are open, so anyone can contribute. So I highly recommend checking out our website, going through the work streams, seeing if any of the projects catch your eye, and then you can reach out to us that way, and we're happy to get you connected. And then another thing that actually just popped into my head is that every year we do a the Google Summer of Code projects. And so I think this year we had 7 or 8 projects that our contributors came up with, applied through Google Summer of Code, and have students participate that way. So feel free to just kind of stay tuned through our mailing lists and on our news site for opportunities that might come next year. But yeah, anything to add, Yash?
I just wanted to add, like you suggested, the onboarding program as well would be a good start to get introduced to work streams and find something that interests you.
And maybe one thing that I might just highlight as well, we didn't get a chance to play the Anna video, but my colleague Amreen has put the link down in the chat. So if you have 4 minutes, I highly recommend checking out that animation. It's a really great one in terms of showing how the GA4GH standards and products can work together to help real use cases out there. So we have a few more questions come through, which is awesome. Yeah, so I'm happy to take the first one. Is GA4GH involved with any non-Anglo groups? And so I admit we do have work as an organization to expand our network and to really engage and involve other organizations around the globe. Currently, we do have 24 driver projects, and back in 2019, we aimed to make a concerted effort to expand with the initiatives that we're working for. So we have the participation of H3 Africa, GEM Japan. This year, we've also had GSI from Indonesia get on board as well. And so again, it's something that we are actively working on to try and expand our reach. So it's not just the Anglo groups. And if anyone out there that you know of is interested in getting involved as an organizational member or becoming a partner, we definitely welcome that as well.
I can try to answer the next one. Is there any accessible standardized data that can be used for research or reviews? I believe GA4GH does not host any data or that is available that you can use, but there are some public data sets that are available that we do use for different projects. Is there anyone in the Secretariat, or Stephanie, do you want to add anything for this question?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. Just take a moment to kind of read it through. And so I know, and let me know if I'm interpreting the question correctly. So I believe GA4GH itself does not specifically host data, but we work with a lot of organizations that do have repos for data that are using GA4GH standards. So I'm sure that those people will be able to have the data to be able to conduct research and reviews.
I work in clinical genomics. What working group would I best contribute to? From the name, I would assume it might be ClinPheno, but again, I would reach out to the onboarding program and see, get a feel of all different work streams, see which deliverables makes more sense to you or which is more related to the work that you're doing right now, and then make a decision. There's also FAST, which is a great resource if you're unsure of, like, if you're using more than one deliverable that belongs to different work streams. I think FAST would also be a good place to brainstorm ideas.
Yeah. And just to add to that, the National Initiatives Forum might also be a really great place to start as well. There are a lot of organizations there that are kind of working on the implementation of clinical genomics. So yeah, all the things that Josh as well you mentioned can be really great starting points.
Is GA4GH hiring?
Sure. Yeah. So yeah, I believe we have future opportunities coming down the pipeline. So we will be posting all job opportunities on our website, ga4gh.org/careers. So I would say just stay tuned. We'll also announce any positions on social media as well for people. So just yep, stay up to date, stay tuned, and you'll see them. All right, so looks like we don't have any more questions. So let's wrap up. So thanks again for joining this webinar. Again, we'll share the slides and a recording of this presentation at the end so that you can have this for reference and share with your colleagues. So with that, good night, good morning, good afternoon to wherever you may be, and take care. Thanks again.
Thank you.